meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. I will read the agenda. Many of these items are going to be continued. I will remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded. We have a discussion regarding Article 37 to abandon the Climate Action Plan. That will be moved a little bit later because Mr. Conklin is presenting to the school committee across the street tonight, and then he'll be over. We have a discussion and a vote to support Article 16, the Hockomock Pond property access. I'll probably do that at the end so we can get the rest of these people out of here. Silver Hollow Estates, possible lot releases, bond reduction, project sign, and landscape elements. Continuation of the public hearing for 165 Flanders. Preliminary subdivision plan for 48 Flanders. Continuation of the public hearing for 190-212 Oak Street. Continuation of the public hearing to modify commercial component of special permit TOV 2014-1 for Village Commons at 1 Gleason. And then we just have an informal discussion on town meeting zoning articles. So why don't we start with the Silver Hollow Estates? Jim, do you have any comments before we start?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Steve is here, project manager from Silver Hollow. He wants to speak to you this evening about two items. Landscape plan is a response to this board several months ago requesting several option designs for the landscape treatment at the entrance to the subdivision, as well as the monument sign naming the subdivision, and Steve has provided those options for your consideration. He also wants to talk about the project covenant and next steps moving forward, establishing a security bond, which we need to have final comments from the town engineer. So I'm going to just give it over to Steve, if that's okay.
Thank you. Nice to see everybody. Thank you for inviting me in. The first thing is I have a renewal form for the covenant. Do I give that to Kristen? And is that sort of a formality, or
So
what do we do with
Steve,
that?
for your information, yes, please give it to Kristen.
Okay.
We will review it in-house and send it to our council. If you used our form, there should be no problem. But
Okay.
we do that as a formality, and then next week, the 21st, we can take it up again.
Thank you. Understood. The second thing is late last year, we did a few designs for, I call them entrance walls, for the subdivision. I shared them with Jim and with Hazel, and today I'm here to request some feedback on them or answer whatever questions I can about the entrance walls. So I have copies here. I think you have electronic copies, but whichever way you want to proceed, I'm happy to be responsive to.
I was very impressed, quite frankly. I thought it looked great, and I was really pleased, and I really appreciate the time and effort you put into redesigning that. I think it'll make a big difference on the whole entrance to that subdivision. You've got nice houses. They're worth a lot of money. It's important to have the entrance look like it is appropriate for what you've built.
No, it's very kind. I appreciate that very much.
Steve, are you looking for us to pick an option of these three?
Not really. We like the option B. There were three. It's simpler. It's simple. It's got a nice aesthetic. It's functional. It seems a little modern. We thought it fit with the aesthetic of the development. Again, I'm not familiar with this process. I was asked to share preliminary designs. We'd like to install the walls as soon as practical, so over the next few months. And the one other matter is in your designs. Originally, there were two walls on each entrance. There are two entrances off of Mount Pleasant, and we feel, and it's subject to your discretion, of course, but we feel that one wall on each entrance is a little less clunky and obtrusive. So I don't know if that's a major change or a minor change, but that would be our request would be Plan B, to move forward from the preliminary designs to go to construction designs and things like that, but to install one on each entrance instead of 4 walls, 2 walls, which seems consistent with the neighborhoods as I've driven around.
Steve, I don't really see a huge difference between B and C.
I think it's just slightly shorter.
It's the length? Okay.
Length
So
is shorter.
C is shorter or B is shorter?
C.
C is shorter.
C is shorter, yeah. It took me a while as well. But because of the size of the roads and the houses, we thought the scale, was worth the extra length.
Yeah, 40 feet versus 15 feet is a substantial difference. Feet. Yeah. 40 feet's a nice wall.
There's a lot of ledge we can use.
Right.
And these were done by Waterman Design, so we have confidence that they'll be well designed, and we have local contractors to install it.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Jim, do we need some type of motion on this? Do we
Yes,
have a
you do,
draft motion?
because Steve showed you the original plan, which is on the top. It says, as per the definitive plan, so that's what's approved. What I would ask that you do is just, in your motion, I didn't know what you were going to do, so I don't have a written motion. You have a written motion for everything else. Is note that this would replace option A as shown in the definitive plan. So you might do something like move to approve entry wall design option B as shown on the plan entitled Silver Hollow Estates dated 8/12/22, option B, to replace the original entry walls as per the definitive plan.
I move the motion as just read by the planner.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor? That's 5-0 in favor.
Thank you. The 2 other quick points, just to touch on them, is we're working through the bond release process. We do finally have all the schedule of values, so we had misplaced them, and so we're working through what's been completed, and then we may make an application shortly for bond release. I'm cognizant that there were only 3 in the life of the project, so I'm trying to be careful about when we request a bond release, but we don't have anything to discuss today. And then you mentioned potential lot releases. There are 26 homes in the development. To date, we have sold 21 of them. 10 of the houses are occupied. The other 11 are under construction. And I'm just trying to wait till the construction catches up before we come in front of you and ask for the release of the next 5. It's, there's a chunk of houses that are going to be delivered in the next few months. And, I don't want to release houses and put them on the market before we're ready to build them. And that's really the reason why we're just waiting on the last 5.
Going back to the construction of the walls or the entrance thing, you'll do a plan which you'll give to us prior to the time you start construction?
As you wish. Yeah.
Okay,
As you wish.
all right.
So the construction drawings,
Yeah,
essentially?
yeah, I think that those ought to go into the file just so we know that they're there, and I think that's important.
Sure.
Just for the board's information and anybody in the public that's interested, the process that Steve is talking about, bond reduction and lot releases, the lots are released from the covenant. He's asking for an updated covenant, which is required under our subdivision rules and regs. So the first step is to update the covenant, which Steve has given us. We will review it. If you accept the extended covenant, because that's what it is, it's an extension, which I'm sure you will, it attaches a security bond. Steve has submitted the request for an updated security bond to the town engineer, who is looking at completed items, the punch list items, which would be subtracted from the existing bond and then updated by today's prices. So as you know, unfortunately, Steve, construction costs have risen, so the bond values have to be adjusted. And neither he nor the town engineer as yet know what the bond should be going forward. Hopefully, it won't need to be increased. Hopefully, it can be decreased. But once the bond is established, the board will vote to accept that amount and then can release lots for construction from the covenant.
Any questions? All right, so there's no further action to be taken?
Not this evening, correct.
Okay, thank you, Steve. We'll see you again, and we'll let you know if we have any other questions.
And I just want to add, thank you all for all your support over the last couple of years, you and all the other departments in Westborough. You know, we've been making some significant progress over the last, year and a half, and we couldn't have done it without you. So I just want to say we appreciate all your efforts and the other departments as well. So thank you again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You're very responsive.
Cheers.
I completely forgot to congratulate Hazel and John on their successful campaigns.
Oh, thanks.
Another 5 years, Hazel. That's, somebody gets a
This one,
one-year
you-
term.
right.
I don't know how you, we'll get you next year. Oh, 2 years? Oh, So we'll get you signed back up in 2 years. Mr. Conklin, are you ready? Great. This is a discussion on Article 39. It's posted as Article 37, but that was prior to the.
A couple of weeks ago, it
warrant
was
rerun.
37.
I don't think that's misleading, though, because it references the Climate Action Plan, and Mr. Conklin is here to speak. If
I'm
you
actually
could
not
just,
going to use this. So
if you could just state your name and address for the record, okay?
Boyd Conklin, 8 Water Street. So I'm not going to go through the slides again. You can check out like Mark said he did, the select board meeting or the advisory finance committee meeting. I'm just going to do the short little thing here. Mitigation or adaptation. In the absence of any proper cost-benefit analysis on the matter, that preemptive action to reduce CO2 emissions in order to stop warming mitigation is preferable to letting the warming happen and then fixing any problems as they arise. Adaptation becomes moot. Moot in the dictionary sense of having little or no practical relevance, typically because the subject is too uncertain to allow a decision. From a philosophical viewpoint, I myself strongly prefer adaptation over mitigation because it avoids spending large amounts of effort and money on what may well turn out to have been non-problems. And if no proper cost-benefit analysis has been done at all, then the case for adaptation over mitigation becomes even stronger. Many people will have noticed that governments, particularly in the U.S., have shown an increasing tendency towards a culture of over-safety and even a safety at any cost. This culture subjects us to even more tighter and more costly restrictions on how we live our lives. It reduces our freedoms and puts us more and more under government micromanagement. Yet we get little or no demonstrated benefits in return. Those that want to mitigate punitive warming, I think, are letting themselves be driven by this culture of over-safety. So, whatever the alarmist may say, I, for one, don't see any evidence for a climate crisis. Still less is there any hard evidence that emissions of CO2 from human civilization are causing any climate problems at all. Nor is it at all certain that any amount of reduction of CO2 emissions would achieve any improvement in the climate. The alarmists, in order to argue that there is a climate problem, require that the surface warming directly caused by having more CO2 in the atmosphere is dwarfed by the feedbacks to this direct warming through other processes, notably water vapor and clouds. But many skeptics, including experts such as Richard Lindzen, do not agree. They think these feedbacks may even be negative. Moreover, an empirical estimate of long-term climate response, including feedbacks by Nick Lewis and Judith Curry, suggests that the effects of CO2 on climate are way less than even the lower bound of the range given by the IPCC. The absence of a permanent hotspot at about 10 to 12 kilometers up in the atmosphere also suggests the feedbacks from warming induced by CO2 cannot be large. The alarmists, I think, have caught themselves in a trap here. The effects of 1 degree of warming over 140 years have not been catastrophic. Why then should we suppose that the effects of at least one more similar warming would be any worse? That defies both common sense and history. The effects of warming into the Roman and medieval warm periods and out of the Little Ice Age weren't bad, were they? Of course, the alarmists will probably try to scare us by telling us that equilibration is slow and there's a lot more warming yet to come, which is already baked in from past CO2 emissions. But that would imply that a lot of the last 140 years of warming is due to factors other than CO2. The alarmists are wrong either way. In my view, the entire global warming and climate change accusation is a total fraud. Those that have peddled and are peddling it are traitors to human civilization. In addition, they are causing severe mental damage to many young people through spreading lies, fear, and scares. They deserve to be brought to justice, made to compensate all those they harmed, and duly punished as traitors deserve. Those who have been bamboozled into believing there is a climate problem at all, let alone a crisis, need to look at the facts, evaluate them, and reach their own conclusions. They must stop fearing anything that hasn't been proven to be a real threat, and they must stop accepting guilt for anything without proof of their guilt beyond reasonable doubt. They also need to stop deferring to politicians, authority figures, experts, and the mainstream media. Instead, they must use their own judgment and spread the truth on the matter as best they understand it to all they can. And I'll leave it at that. I think 5 or 10 minutes, huh?
No, that was succinct. I turn to the board. Well, actually, I do have to offer anybody who wishes to speak in opposition to Mr. Conklin is welcome to please take as little time or, don't go any further, longer than he did if you can, please. I want to give equal time to both sides.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. I obviously,
Could you just
Pete
stand?
Dunbeck, 8 Wayside Road. I obviously speak in opposition to this motion. Regardless, I mean, the preponderance of scientific evidence is contrary to Mr. Conklin's comments. Whether you accept that or not, the state certainly has scientists and policy people that have totally accepted it. And there's a massive change coming of state policy and regulations. The Climate Action Plan and Sustainable Westborough are working hard to help the community prepare for that and ease the transition. I think it's very positive, but obviously not everybody agrees. But the state is certainly driving change, and it's coming at a very fast pace. And I think Westborough is wise to have a plan to respond to that.
Okay, thanks, Pete. All right, questions from the board, discussion of any kind? So, Mr. Conklin, I'm trying to figure out from your statement what exactly in the climate action plan should we repeal? Is the whole thing bad or just some parts of it, or?
Well, what I see is installations like Fail School. So with the big solar project on top of it, 10 million apparently was the cost previous to financing. And then the geothermal 4,600 foot wells, I don't know, maybe that costs 20 million or something, and then you have to finance it. So I see the town moving forward on electrifying everything. That's what the climate action plan does. So in a school like Hastings or the library that they want to do, they would like to get rid of all the gas, natural gas heating kind of thing. And I see that as about a third the cost of electric as electric continues to rise higher and all the legacy systems are gas. And so changing it out and putting in big electrical conduits to handle that kind of heating load and let alone the cost kind of thing. We see the police department getting forced to get, along with Department of Public Works hybrid vehicles. We see charging stations going in. We see when you're talking to the planning department, you guys are interested in there's certain people on your board, I suppose, that are interested in putting in charging stations when somebody's putting in a new building, or are they going to put charging stations? I know I went to a meeting a few months ago or something like that where that was it. So there's a lot of money being put into this in Westborough. It's a big drain on the finances of the town. Pete's big selling point for Sustainable Westborough and the Climate Action Plan is all this is free money, all this grant money, all this subsidy. You look at the $1.7 trillion Inflation Producing Act, Inflation Reduction Act that just went into effect, and $400 billion of it was for subsidies. But that didn't have a cap on it, so that could actually end up being $2 billion. So not only is this squeeze in the town for for the taxes on our residential property or commercial property, but also the federal government continuously printing money to cover the cost of this stuff. So I'm for adaptation. If there's a problem, people may say, like, that 10 years, 10 years, if we don't do something right now, it's 10 years, and we've heard this for 50 years. We've heard all kinds of stories out of the government, that all these conspiracy theories that people say, like, no, it's not, and then the government comes out and says, oh yeah, well, okay, we knew that, or this, or the other thing. Government is not to be trusted. If you think they are, I don't know where you're at, but certainly the federal and the state following them blindly is a disaster. This bank, Silicon Valley Bank, that just went under Friday, their big thing was
Mr. Conklin, that's a little off.
The
off topic,
the ESG. Environmental social governance kind of business, which is all about this reducing carbon, zero carbon, and this kind of thing. And so having that the focus as apart from the finances of the town is a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know, did that answer your question?
I don't want to get into a philosophical discussion with you tonight.
Sure.
I just trying to figure out specifically what in the Climate Action Plan is.
Well, it's about net zero. It's about zero carbon, and carbon is coming from gasoline cars. It's coming from natural gas for heating.
Right.
It's coming from coal or oil right now. 60% of the electrical that's coming into this town is carbon based. It's not the solar. And if you go through I
understand that. So in general, you want the town to not move to
zero carbon.
Zero carbon.
Yeah,
and you
the
think
most
that the Climate Action
cost-effective
Plan will encourage
And
that.
what I see the town doing is they're taking their municipal, where they have sway, the town governance has sway, is in the municipal end first, is what they're trying to convert to zero carbon at the moment.
Yeah, so I have to say, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an expert on either side of these issues, but I'm struggling with what seems to be a small, position. There seems to be very few experts that are leaning in the direction that you are. And I feel like I've got to rely on, if you want to ask me about real estate, I'm pretty, I don't want to say an expert because that's bragging, but I know a lot about real estate. So, but as far as what you're talking about, I've got to go with the experts, and I'm seeing a lot of people tell me that this is a beneficial move for us, and I don't see, I don't put a lot of weight on your citations. So I'm struggling with it. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I appreciate your passion for it. Anytime a taxpayer or a citizen wants to come in and be passionate about on an issue, I like to hear from people. A lot of times we have meetings and no one's here, so I do appreciate that.
So, for instance, on the fail school,
Yeah.
how much do you figure that would have cost if it wasn't going zero carbon versus just building school?
So again, you're asking me,
gas firing it?
yeah, you're asking me about things I'm not an expert on, but the fail school.
Well, I'm talking about building
The fail
real
school
estate.
did get passed at town meeting, and, a lot of people voted on it,
Sure.
right? So,
Well, I'm just
this is,
working
that's
the
all kind of
financial-
water under the bridge. I
The
mean, I think,
financial end.
yeah.
Well, I'm saying that where we're going, everything is going to be the fail school in the municipal arena. Every
Okay.
rebuild is going to be the fail school. It's going to
Okay.
be zero carbon.
All right, well, all right, I don't want
Okay, that's
again,
okay.
I personally think that in 20 years, we're not going to see any gas stations anymore because everybody's going to be driving electric vehicles. And that's the trend in the industry. And 10 years ago, there was one EV maker, Tesla, and now there's every automaker's making electric vehicles. So I just think that's the future, and I don't really understand how
I agree
we're.
with you that you and what you've seen and where you get your information and the amount of information that comes in and from every place is along those lines. I agree. I also agree. I also think that people are very easily manipulated by governments.
Yeah, so it's our responsibility to do what's best for the town, and I totally understand your what you're trying to tell us tonight. But to be honest, Pete, for example, has put many hours into years into this whole project. So I think, in my opinion, what Pete's doing for the town is very monumental for the town, and it's going to impact the town for decades.
I think it will too.
So it's kind of hard for me to hear this argument just based on where trends are going, what people are putting into this, and I think and then when you call out people on the board for wanting to put electric charging stations on, town's not paying for that. The project is paying for that, and so it's kind of, I don't know. It's I understand and I appreciate your effort, but I think it makes sense for the town to keep on moving in the right direction. And I think Pete and what he's doing for the town is very important.
Yeah, I think it's even further than that, because if we were to actually abandon the climate action plan, which is what I believe the motion is, I think that would have a negative impact on us in our ability to receive grants from the state for things that we will need, right? It's the same, there's other, we're applying for a housing choice designation. We can't apply for several grants until we get that housing choice designation.
And that's absolutely true. And the school committee faces exactly the same thing. You go along with what the state and what the feds do, and you follow their things, and then you're able to get the grants, kind of thing. So yes, there's the hook. And so I understand completely that they've got you. They've got you. They hang out the cash, and then
So my biggest hang up with moving against the climate action plan is renewable resources give us a little bit of autonomy right? If we're generating the energy without any connection to the grid, and I understand there's problems with supply chains in the grid for electric energy and all that kind of stuff. But if we're relying only on fossil fuels, then we're relying on foreign governments, we're relying on the volatility of that market, and we're not using the natural renewable resources that we have that we're not relying on anybody for. And so if we're gonna take that portion out of the equation, I feel like we're putting ourselves in a very vulnerable position of always relying on somebody else and not relying on what we have here.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story about that. I went down to Florida to visit my mother a couple of years ago, and the governor was pushing for the pipeline to get open. And I just couldn't understand why the governor of Florida would want the pipeline to be open when it's probably the sunniest state in America. Shouldn't he be pushing for more solar energy that is essentially readily available here as opposed to a pipeline from another country? And again, I don't want to get into the politics of pipelines. I just find it, shouldn't we be, America is innovative. We've always figured out how to, we're always ahead of the curve on stuff. And I honestly think this is us being ahead of the curve on the next industrial revolution, computer revolution, whatever it may be.
Part of in the presentation where it shows the more of the renewables, whether it's wind or solar, that you have, the less cost benefit they have, because they're intermittents. When the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, kind of thing. So you actually have to set up the fossil fuel backup for all these things. So you have to have full capacity with the fossil
Why
fuels.
is relying wholly on fossil fuels better than having fossil fuels as a stopgap for when those renewables are not being
because
energy producing? I don't understand how that would
it's
work.
cost effective.
How is that cost effective?
Well,
using only fossil fuels and not using renewables?
Natural gas is a lot cheaper than setting up the arrays or the wind turbines.
Yeah, but
Do
last
you
time,
think,
It's only
building the
subsidies.
infrastructure for natural gas is cheaper than the infrastructure for solar, and then the operating cost for natural gas is cheaper than operating costs for solar? Okay.
so
Now, there's a lot of
last-
subsidies involved that that say like, oh, okay, but everybody's paying for these things, the country.
And I'm not trying to get into an argument. Are we not paying for subsidies for fossil fuels? There's no subsidies for fossil fuels?
I think that the big subsidies right now are for the,
Do you have the numbers on that?
no.
Yeah, so
Well,
again, I get back
for
to
the
my,
Inflation Reduction Act, the 1.7
There's that one thing, but you don't have any
for-
information about the subsidies for fossil fuels?
No.
Okay.
so I'll make another point. I think I read the other day that the Saudi royal family has over $655 billion. If you take every other billionaire in the world and add up their fortune, it's still less than what the Saudi Arabian royal family has. So I don't really understand why we're encouraging a policy that puts more money into other countries.
Well, just like 2 years ago, we were energy independent here in the United States. We produced it all ourselves, and so we didn't have to import any natural gas or oil or anything.
Okay. All right. I don't necessarily know if we
Do we have to-
need to make if anyone wants to make a motion to support that article, they can. If there's none, I don't see anyone
Yeah,
in
sure.
support.
Do we need a motion?
So-
Are they looking for a recommendation?
So there's a couple of ways that you can approach this. If you want to make it definite that you're for or against the proposal to abolish the climate action plan or abandon it, you could make a motion to do that. And if you don't get a second, then it fails. And you can either decide to vote against, recommend voting against this proposal, or just leave it alone.
Okay, I'll make a motion to recommend that the town vote to defeat Article 39 as written in the warrant.
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I feel it's very important that citizens in this town have their say and are able to bring forth their ideas on various matters in town. And I don't think that, I would prefer to see the planning board step back from this, not make a motion one way or another to support or not support, because I really feel that That's the province of that's the point of the town meeting. And I don't feel that this particular item, an issue, is something that I really am prepared myself, quite frankly, to vote for or against as a planning board member. I think as a town member, I will make my decision at that point. But I don't think this is really something that our planning board should be talking for or against, because I just feel that it's a citizen's petition that's come before the town, and that that's coming before a town meeting, and that's the appropriate person or appropriate body to make the decision one way or another.
I agree with Hazel.
So can I just push back on that? It came before us and presented for a reason. Why would they present if they don't want to have our feedback or our recommendation?
Well, we've given him feedback one way or another.
I understand, but that
I
doesn't
don't
go to
think-
town meeting.
Yeah, he didn't specifically, my understanding was that he didn't specifically came for information purposes as much as anything else. He didn't make a formal request for us to vote one way or another on this.
Yeah, and I feel like we were elected to a position that directly would be impacted by this article. And for us not to make some type of recommendation, I think is,
I'm not
I don't want to say
educated enough
derelict,
to-
but I think, I think we should make some type of recommendation on this. I feel like we owe that to the people who elected us.
I'm not educated enough to make a decision on this, to be honest with you. And on the agenda, it says it's a discussion, not a decision. So I agree with Hazel. I think we just, it's on the record and.
Well, we have a motion and a second, so we have to vote. That's,
Okay.
any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? That's 3-2 in favor. All right, thank you for coming in.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right. Gentlemen, are you here for Gleason Street? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, that we have quite a few items that are being continued tonight, so can I ask which agenda item you're here for? Okay,
Oh,
For
Silver Hollow.
okay.
Oh, Silver Hollow.
All right, so we already did that. Were you aware of that? Okay. I'm not telling you to leave. You're welcome to stay. I just want to make sure you're not waiting for a presentation that isn't going to happen. So, all right, next item on the agenda. Why don't we do the continuations? I think everything else is being continued. So we have 165 Flanders Road site plan review application. I have a letter from the applicant, from Bowler Engineering, who is the engineer for the applicant, addressed to the planning board and Jim Robbins, planning director, regarding EG America, 165 Flanders Road. Dear Mr. Robbins, on behalf of EG America, we would like to request a continuance of the planning board hearing for the project at 165 Flanders Road until the first planning board meeting scheduled in April. If you should have any questions or require additional information, please do not hesitate to contact me. And that's signed Andrew Platt from Bowler Engineering. Any questions on that? What is the date on our first meeting? April 4th?
April 4th.
Okay. If there's no questions, do we have a motion on that?
I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the site plan review application of 165 Flanders Road to Tuesday, April 4, 2023 at 6:30 as requested by the applicant.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of continuance? That's 5-0 in favor. Jim, I don't see the letter requesting the continuance on 48 Flanders. We don't need
There's
the
no
letter.
there's no public hearing for a preliminary plan.
That's
It's
right.
just plan discussion, and I sent you an email because I received the request for waivers this afternoon at 4:40, and I haven't had a chance to review them. I discussed them with him on the phone this morning, asking for the formal request, because as you know, the the plan can't be built according to our subdivision rules and regs, so the applicant has to request waivers. So for the next meeting, I'm hoping that the town engineer and I will review these, agree that they're okay. We have informally already, and they'll have a decision for the next meeting.
We do have a deadline of the Friday before the meeting for any submissions.
Yep.
So I think it's appropriate that we give staff a chance to review this request
Yep.
before we proceed. So, do we have a motion on that? Any discussion before we make a motion? Okay. Anybody want to
All
make
right,
that?
I move that the planning board continue its discussion of the proposed preliminary plan for a residential subdivision at 48 Flanders Road
I'll s-
until Tuesday, March 21st, 2023 at 6:30.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? That's 5-0 in favor, taking that up next week. Next item was, we have two items, the continuation of the public hearing for 190 212 Oak Street, and the continuation of the public hearing to modify the commercial component at 1 Gleason Street. I have a letter from, dated Wednesday, March 15th, from Farouk Ansari, who is the applicant for both of those, addressed to Jim Robbins. Jim, we hereby request continuance of the above meetings to the next scheduled meeting on April 4th, 2023. So I think we'll take that, although that's not our next scheduled meeting. I think the continuance is requested through April 4th.
I think that's wise. I wrote your motion assuming that it would be ready for the 21st, but since he's requested to April 4, I think you should take that date.
I move that the planning board continue public hearing for the site plan review application for 19212 Oak Street and the public hearing to modify special permit TOV 2014-1 for Village Commons at 1 Gleason Street to Tuesday, March 21st.
No, April
April 4th, 2023 at 6:30 PM.
Second.
Okay, we have a,
Could I just have a point of information?
sure.
Do you have any work sessions scheduled for this applicant?
We had requested that the town council review the deed. We were able to locate the town meeting action, I think it was 2019, was it? that they-
1999.
Oh, sorry, that's 20 years sooner, 20 years earlier. So the town council now has that, and I've asked for an opinion. So
I think once we hear back from council, we'll have to schedule another work session.
That's what I was wondering.
And my hope is to have that work session before the 4th and try to come to some resolution to bring to the board. But
Maybe, Jim, maybe you could impress on town council that we need this fairly quickly because this has been such a delayed process that we're going through that
I
they have
agree.
to
I'll send her
continue
another
this.
email tomorrow.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that,
Anything else?
I think the applicant has
problem.
been pretty patient and waiting for this, so.
Okay.
Let's see if we can get that all done before the 4th. All right. And Pete, you're on that work session with me, so we'll try and get that in. All right. Next item on the agenda.
I don't think we didn't
No, we
vote
didn't.
on this.
No, I'm sorry. We had a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor? That's 5-0 in favor of continuing that to April 4th. All right, so the next item on the agenda is discussion and vote to support Article 16, Hockomock Pond property access. And I have to warn you, we have a draft presentation on this that the committee has not vetted. We're meeting tomorrow morning, so I can do the presentation tonight, or we could do it on the 21st. Once we, I don't mind doing it
Yeah,
tonight
yeah.
because the 21st is a pretty long agenda.
Yeah.
But if I'm starting to get negative results, I'd prefer to continue it rather than so that I can get some questions answered.
What would,
if
what
there's
would be the change? Would it be substantive, or would it just be like formatting? Is it things
no,
that you're gonna tell us would change?
there may be some questions you have that I don't know the answer to, or, again, I'm not a expert on EPA regulations.
Yeah, perhaps
so-
it would be good in that relationship if you gave it to us tonight, so that if you have a meeting tomorrow, if there are things that you might wish to bring to
Oh,
the
it'd be great,
meeting.
yeah. I'd love to have you guys see it
Yeah.
tonight and give me feedback, and so I can go to the meeting tomorrow and
Right.
say, this is what happens when you present this, we need to make this change
Yeah.
or that change. You already made a suggestion
already
that
yeah.
there be more pictures in there, and I think as you see the presentation. So why don't I go through it, but I completely agree with you that some nice pictures of the site would be helpful for this, so that people understand.
Do we have to vote on this tonight?
No, we
No.
can vote on it on the
Okay.
21st.
All right, that's fine.
We can just continue this
Yeah.
to 21st if you guys don't feel comfortable
Yeah.
voting. All right, so Hockomock Pond, public access.
Make it full size.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me see how we do that.
That's good feedback, John.
Yeah. We want to be able to see the type.
I don't remember how to do this. I'm sorry, guys.
It's down in the bottom right.
Yeah, click on the screen on the bottom right-hand corner, right next to the volume,
There we go.
bottom right-hand corner.
Okay, space pauses it.
There you go.
Space.
Oh, I can just tab through it, it's not gonna go. All right, so, the public access plan implementation, the purpose of the article is to fund initial requirements. These requirements are a develop of a work and health and safety plans for the task that the committee has determined need to be completed, and development of bid documents for installing a security fence. So before I explain that further, we should give you a little background. The Select Board formed the Reuse Committee with various appointments, representatives from other committees and boards. This is the area we're talking about. This red outlined area is known as Area A. You can see here that it's just south of Hockomock Pond, but it includes the entire pond. And this is the Amazon facility just north of it that I think we're all familiar with. The sewer
Mark, I
treatment,
wasn't
the
clear-
sewer treatment
was-
plant is here in the
Yeah.
Lollipop.
I wasn't clear when you just said, when you described it as south of,
So the pond is Hockomock Pond.
Right.
And then this area here, okay, you can't see the cursor. Where's
that's,
the
okay,
pointer?
that's
All
my
right.
problem, I couldn't see the cursor, okay.
All right, this area
There you
here,
Yeah,
the land portion of this lot is south of the pond, and that's all town-owned, including the pond. Here is the train station, and I'll go to the next slide, that might give you guys a better.
Go to the next slide. These, actually, you go to the next slide, because that's a better slide. The labels that you have calling out with the yellow arrows are easier to read than the ones that are on the map with the halo around it.
Okay.
So these are very hard to read.
Oh, yeah, no, they are.
Oh, I can't see what
I
that's.
All
can't.
right, maybe we can try a different color on
If you-
those.
Well, if you did like a text box and outlined it, where those labels are, that would be easier to see. It's just
Okay.
When you do
So-
the halos.
So people can get their orientation, this is the train station, and label that better, so that people can see it. Label this as 50 Otis.
the Amazon, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I understand that, and then label the sewer treatment plant as well. That will give most people,
Make sure you label it water treatment plant.
I'm sorry.
What does it say? I can't even
He
read
says-
it.
He said.
I
Well,
keep saying
that's-
sewer treatment plant. So
Use another one of those.
that would be my unfamiliarity with those two facilities, so. Anyway, the pond was a creosote wood treatment facility, and creosote is basically what they used to treat telephone poles. And what they did, they had these big lagoons of creosote, and they dipped the poles into it. And then they found out that creosote was a carcinogen. And so it became a Superfund site. It took 17, 18 years to remediate. There's all these wells scattered throughout the property. Most of them have been decommissioned, but they basically would yearly, test the soil, or, test the water that was coming out of these wells.
Were
to
the
see if
wells
it was
all on the same site, I mean, all within that site that you
Yeah, they're all in the
outlined?
ground, on the ground portion, yeah. And in fact, I'll show you a better slide, they're really all inside the fence. So of the dry area, half of it's fenced and half of it's not. So all the wells were inside the fence. In 2017, the town signed a notice of activity, use, and limitation, basically with the EPA, that basically says if we want to do anything there, we have to get EPA's permission to do it and come up with a health and safety and work plan. So that's what the funding will be used for, is that plan. And you have to hire somebody to do that. You have to hire what's called a licensed site professional to prepare that plan. It's not something that you and I, EPA requires that. It's not something that even if I were expert enough to do that, I couldn't do it without that designation. So we need to spend some money on that. And then, as you'll see, we need to go out to bid. We need to prepare some bid documents for the next phase, which would be trying to get the site open. So Area A is the entire site, including the pond. Area B is the landfills where those lagoons were. So there's two landfills on the site that cannot be disturbed at all. And what we're proposing is that we fence that in. The recommendation of the committee is to create public access so that we can create a trail system through there to link up with the easements that the planning board negotiated from Amazon.
And that would go around where the present areas where you cannot access them? I mean, in
Well, I'll
other
show
words-
you on a
Okay.
future slide where
Yeah.
we're talking about. I don't have, we're not really discussing the Amazon side, the 50 Otis
Right.
side, but I'll show you where we're proposing a trail system on this property.
Okay. And can I just go back, when you started to talk about cost, can you give any figures on?
Yeah,
you've
it's,
got two separate figures.
I forget the exact number, it's 30,000 and change. So 3470, I think it is.
Because you talked actually about two separate things. One was the fencing,
Yeah.
and the other was
So
kind
we,
of a use thing.
Yeah, so the planning board, I'm sorry, the planning board, the reuse committee went to Ty and Bond, who does a lot of engineering for the town, and asked them for an estimate on what it would cost to do those two items. So they're a licensed site professional, they're capable of doing both of these. They gave us a combined cost of 30,000 and I think it's 470. I forget the exact number. I should have known that before I came. And I can find it in my email if you really want the exact
No,
number.
I'm just sort of raising the questions
yeah.
that I thought maybe people would be asking.
Yeah, and really, all that money is going to do is prepare that safety plan and work plan to get EPA's permission to do anything, right? And then the other thing it'll do, it'll prepare bid documents so that we can go out to bid for the one major thing that we need is an additional fencing, and I'll show you that.
Okay, because
Okay.
you did mention in your presentations of or something about use of the property. So
Right.
essentially, this is not going to, we're not really talking about use, we're just talking about preliminary steps in order to allow use. That's
No matter
allowed.
what, no matter what use
Right.
goes on this,
Yeah.
we would have to take these steps.
Yeah.
Okay, so the plan is to take these trails, create some new trails on the property. There's an existing land trust trail already on the property that's on the portion outside the fence. I think I'll show you the next slide. All right, so we came up with a list of 5 things that we needed to do in order to make this site usable. One
Are you
is,
gonna put a slide in showing
Yeah, let me
where
get-
the trails
yeah.
are, we go
Here you
between
go.
there?
all right. Can I zoom? All right. Can you guys see that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So currently, this, here, let me go back. This purple line is the existing fence. And as you can see, it goes halfway through the property. So all of the wells that I was talking about earlier are inside the fence, and the 2 landfill areas are here. This cleared area here and this cleared area here. Those cannot be disturbed. That's part of that use limitation. We can't disturb that ground at all. And what the committee is proposing is to put this red fence around those areas so that the rest of this site can be used. Now, currently, this side of the property, which is west of where the existing fence is open. And there's this green line is an existing land trust trail. People put in kayaks and stuff down here off of the water treatment road. And then over here, there's that bike, multi-purpose trail from Westborough Village that comes out to Otis Street. So the concept that the committee is supporting is to open an access point in the fence here on Otis Street. There's an existing trail here in this dark green line that comes down about to here, all right? We want to continue that through another opening in the fence and connect it to the existing land trust trail, and that comes out directly across from
The train station.
train station. Or somebody could continue along the trail, and then the long-term plan is to go up, get around these wetlands, and join up with the trails that are on 50 Otis up here. So we're gonna, if we keep the existing fence, and we're not proposing taking that down because any fence posts or anything that come out would disturb soil, and then that soil needs to be disposed of properly. So that could get pretty expensive if we want to take the fence down. But we are proposing putting a fence around this section to link up with the existing fence to protect these 2 landfill areas. And
Wait a
then-
minute, you said the red lines are existing fence?
No, the purple line on the outside is his existing fence.
Okay,
The red line is the
thank you.
proposed fence
Okay,
that we would need to
set those
Um,
off.
So you would just remove.
to protect those areas and allow people onto the site.
So what what fence are you removing? Just the
We're-
purple area?
all-
Except for the road?
All we're proposing is creating an opening in the fence
Ah.
here and an opening in the fence here. Those would be the access points.
Oh, because and that's where you said if you remove the fence, then you have to do the soil
Yeah.
work?
So there's an existing driveway over here. I don't think I can get to it on this plan, but if you see the building
Yeah.
that's on the site, that's where the dispatch center is proposed. There's a driveway that comes out here. Until the dispatch center is resolved, we're not proposing any vehicular access or parking on the site. We're just proposing the bare minimum to get the site open and usable with very little cost other than those health and safety plans and the bid contracts and the fence, we'll have to come back and request, once we get the bid out and we have a number for the fence, we'll have to come back and ask for money for the fence. But that's the bare minimum right now until we know what happens with the dispatch center.
Will there be any access from the trail on the, I don't know, it must be this, to the left of the area there, for putting canoes or any kind of water?
Well, there's already
I know
people
there's
putting
one-
boats
I
in,
know-
but we're
I
not
know there's
proposing
one
any
around over
improvements.
there.
Yeah.
Will there be one,
Well,
will there be any others that might be proposed to go?
yeah, we're not proposing that at this point.
Okay.
And
It
we're,
would be kind of hard to get your boat down there.
I was wondering if you could, if you could park on Smith Valve Parkway, you see, and walk your boat if you're able to go straight in.
Okay.
And my other thought was, up Otis Street, if you can come in there, would there'd be an access to be able to put canoes or something in from Otis Street? That was the reason I asked, yeah.
That side of the site, just as a comment through the chair, there's two obstacles to access from the Otis Street side. One is wetlands. It's extremely wet
Oh,
on that
right,
side.
okay.
The wetlands run right up to the fence line.
Yeah.
And the slope is very steep. So for you to put in, okay, thank you, Mark. So see with the trail that he's showing with
Yeah.
green?
here.
That's a proposed trail. Yeah, that skirts right between the wetlands. That trail is going to be really narrow.
Oh, this trail exists.
Yeah, but it's like a fisherman's trail. It's not a formal trail.
Oh, no,
And
it's well marked and it's
The
pretty.
CLT, is
Yeah, I
using
mean,
an
it's-
existing trail.
It's not as wide as the one at Lake
Right.
Chauncey.
My point is, to offload a canoe there, you could never get a vehicle close enough to the shoreline, and the slope is quite steep at that area of the
Because
park.
the one time I went and did some walking with the land trust, we accessed further down the road to the water treatment plant and came in that way.
Yeah, it's flat. It's
It's
easy to
flat,
access.
and there other people seem to be putting canoes and things in
Yes,
from
in
there,
there.
which is
Yeah.
a much easier place to do
So
it.
Hazel, we're not proposing any improvements that would allow, easier boating access than is already there.
Okay.
A, because we're trying to minimize the cost right now and just get the site open so people can experience it. And then if there's a demand from the town citizens and so on to create more improvements there, then we'll hear about it then. But, until the fire dispatch center is resolved, we don't want to spend a lot of money on improvements because we're hoping that they'll pay for, like, the parking and some of the other, there's some concrete, like, structures here that need to be secured, and we're hoping they'll pay for that because it's right next to the building.
So I guess my only question is there going to be signage on the fence just to have people
Yeah.
aware of?
Yeah, so when we come back for the fence, we'll have built into that cost will be, the idea is to put probably boulders of some kind here, because we can't dig into the ground and put bollards but we'll put boulders here so vehicles can't get in, and probably here as well so vehicles can't get in. And there'll be signage all along the way.
And on the fence, like.
And on the fence
Yeah.
and near the pond to recommend people use caution.
And not to go swimming or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna worry about the signage when we put the fence up, because we can't allow people on the site until we get the fence up.
Of course.
So all of that will be, those are gonna be minor costs. The fence is gonna be the big cost.
And how much is the fence going to be?
That's, we don't know until
Oh,
we.
until you've done
so
the
we-
study.
The whole
Okay.
point of this is to, A, present the plan to EPA so that they approve it, and B, have the professional prepare a bid document so we can go out to bid for the fence. So we can't even get a number on the fence until we take this step.
Okay. Is there a possibility this would be ready for the October meeting?
Yeah, there's certainly a possibility that we could ask for money in October and try and have it open in 2024. You know, again, we want to get this article passed first.
Well, no, I understand that, but I mean,
Yeah.
it just, you know, I was kind of trying to look at the timeline
Yeah,
on this.
no one's more impatient on this than I am.
Push it through.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, what else? Yeah, I mean, really, it's not, to me, it's not it's money that we're gonna have to spend. If we wanna do anything with this site, we're gonna have to provide, that plan to the EPA, and we're gonna have to protect these, landfill areas. You know, if we wanna let anybody on the site at all. I guess theoretically, we could just let it sit there and do nothing. But then people wouldn't appreciate the beauty of the site, and we wouldn't have a, you
Now,
know, a
are you
trail system.
constrained by the EPA as to the type of fence and the height and all the rest of those things?
When you say constrained by the EPA, again, we have to pay the tie and bond, the engineer, to prepare a bid document that will specify the height, location, type of fencing, how to, how to dispose of the soil. So all of that has to be determined by a licensed site professional, but we can't, get them to make definitive numbers until they actually get paid to do it.
And they'll have to do field inspections and all the rest of it. so-
Yeah, they'll have to be
Sure.
on site for all the work.
So, how long do you think that fence is? That red line? And then if we have to dig a hole.
Can't dig a hole.
You can dig a
No,
hole, but it
you-
has to be
has
done by an
But
expert.
then it has to be tested. So how many holes?
No, it doesn't have to be tested, it has to be disposed of properly.
Yeah. So you're talking a lot of holes
Yeah,
that need to be disposed of. That's gonna cost the town a lot of money for a trail that, I understand what the whole proposal of the town to get this trail to go through the whole town. But that's a lot of money.
well, we don't know how much it is.
Well, if you, I know how much I paid to put a fence around my house, and I didn't have to dispose of the dirt. So, and that do you know how long that fence would be?
No, I don't know, I can get it measured, but
Yeah.
it would be a ballpark.
Okay.
So,
No, it's just that
All right.
it's gonna be an expensive project for the town where I don't know, we've been at a bunch of these town meetings where people are not very willing to spend money necessarily on projects that aren't gonna bring money back to the town, right? This is a recreational kind of project, so I can see where you might get some,
Pushback.
pushback. Right.
Well, I hope we don't, because I think it's gonna be a showpiece, recreational site for the future. And
Mark,
I
can
think
you-
everyone will,
Yeah.
you just need to set foot on that land to realize how how beautiful it is.
I think it would be helpful if you could show the links, how this is going to link up. I mean, the purpose of, we're showing a very small
Sure.
portion. So I think a picture showing how this is going to link up with the other trails
Yep.
would be very important for people to see how it's going to do this.
Okay, I will do that.
Is there any way we can get, so I guess the first question is, with the Superfund funding, was there any provision for future fencing? Or once they put the fence up, that's kind of like what was paid for? So like,
Yeah,
we can't,
no.
there's no other alternative funding for this fence, right?
No. Um, I say that, but we are exploring grant opportunities to see if we can get this paid for, in which case we would return this money to the state.
Is there any way that Amazon would be willing to donate fencing? What?
I didn't hear that.
Is there any way that Amazon would be willing to donate fencing? Or pay for?
They might. Don't
Can
know that
ask
they
them.
will. They're giving,
Right.
excuse me, I'm sorry, through the chair. Amazon is giving us easements across their 3 properties, and in some instances, improving their trails that pre-existed the effort, so that the town can use them.
Yeah.
So I don't know, you could ask.
Yeah.
A little bit about the site, and I think that you covered a lot of facts. Those are really good facts, and I like your map very much. And I mean that.
Well, I
The-
give credit to Andy Konigsberg, who
Okay, yeah, the
He's
map
good
is
on
really
maps.
good.
Yeah,
But what I was going to say about the site, it is a Superfund site, and they did receive Superfund money, and the town and Beazer, which was the successor to the company that polluted the site many years ago, I can't remember the first company's name, were required to do the cleanup. So the town was named in the suit, even though we didn't do any work because we received the land. We were the landowner, and so we were named in the suit, but Beazer did most of the cleanup. Superfund money was allowed to build the treatment plant that was there, and I think it took probably 25 years to finish the cleanup, because they forced clean water into the soil, into the rock crevices, to force the creosote out. And the building that's out there had an extraction device, a vacuum extraction device that took gallons of creosote out until they got down to the point that they were extracting 6 gallons a year, which the EPA said, you're basically clean now. And that includes the pond as well, because the pond was contaminated, so that needed to clean up as well. The site, I guess former creosote basins, which are now called landfills, have been capped in that site. That area cannot be punctured because of the nasties that are capped. And what Mark said earlier, that when you build a fence, you have to puncture the area surrounding the cap, and you have to remediate that soil, has to be removed. And clean has to be put back in its place if the posts are ever removed. But Superfund money for the remediation is gone. There is Superfund money for development, future reuse of the site. I don't know if that money would fund the fence if you don't do a development. It might. There might be another recreational grants program that would fund that fence rather than Superfund money. But we have to find that out.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly looking for grants for both the fence and even looking for something that might cover this cost. But we're trying to get this process started so that we can get this open. And I think it's, personally, I think it's overdue. I've had the pleasure of walking over there, and it's one of the nicer trail opportunities in town. So I really think people will appreciate that we're able to allow public access to this site, and I don't think people will regret spending this money.
Out of curiosity, we're talking about trails and so forth. What are we going to do about parking to allow people to access
Yeah.
the trails?
So for now, there is public parking all along Otis. There is the parking lot at the train station that costs money. We're not proposing any additional parking on site until we see what happens with the dispatch center. We're hoping that we'll be able to use some of that parking so the dispatch center may also have some training events, so they may have surplus parking that they don't use except for the occasional training event. So they're going to have maybe 10 employees on site at any one time, but they may be looking for a big enough parking lot to have a training event. So that might be something we could use for the public. So short answer is we don't want to ask the town for money for parking right now. we think there's enough parking along Smith Parkway for the town to use.
Do we have no parking signs out there? I thought,
No, it's
Yeah.
all 2-hour
Right.
parking, or actually, there's not
So
even a 2-hour limit on
The
it.
parking on the Hockomock side of the street is not restricted. the-
All along here,
The
along,
other side is restricted.
that's, I knew someone was, okay, all right.
actually, I think the parking is along the train station side.
Well, there is parking on the train station. I just didn't realize that.
Both sides of the
anybody
street
can
have
park
parking.
on the other side of the street. But I don't see any people parking for the train on the other side of the street.
No, I
It's
don't think
free
you can park
parking.
on the Hockomock side.
Right, so
I
that's,
think you can only park on the train station side.
There are spaces there, they were striped, but I think there's no parking. Do you know, Patrick?
No,
Yeah, I
I'm
think,
looking on Google Maps right now, there's
there's
Yeah,
no
I don't think
striping.
it's-
no striping on the
Okay.
Hockomock side.
Yeah,
Okay.
Hockomock,
Yeah.
and
oh, the
I
only,
stand
the
corrected
only,
on that.
the only parking spaces are along Smith Parkway on the train station side.
yes.
There is a crosswalk at the mouth of the train station.
Yep.
but there's nobody, what I'm saying is that if you drive down Smith Parkway, nobody's parking on the Hockomock side, which
Correct.
leads me to believe that nobody's allowed to park on
Yeah,
that
there's
side.
Yeah, I was
That's
wrong.
correct.
I stand corrected.
That's
on
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if you can't park on there, and on Otis Street, there's not a lot kind of by that entrance. I've forgotten what,
There's like 2 spaces.
yeah, the parking is over there, so that was the reason I asked. I'm a little concerned about the amount of parking which would be available for people to use that
Well, there's a
site.
lot of parking along Smith Parkway.
But Monday
that
through,
parking
but
go-
Yeah,
Monday
but
through
through
Friday,
Friday.
during the day, those are all taken up, and
Right.
the parking lot's open. Just.
Every
that's-
single one, every time I drive by there, every single space is taken up,
Yeah,
all the
Because
way
people don't
down.
want to pay for parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, all the way down to Gleason Street. I mean, as far as you go down there, every single spot is taken, because people do not want to pay for parking in the lot.
Okay.
I think it's like, what, $4 or $5 a day or something?
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
you know, it's about 25 spots
25
running down there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'll bring that up with the committee. Our thought was not to ask the town for money for parking at this time.
well, you don't need, I
On
just,
site.
it's a question someone may ask, you know, how are you going to get access to that site? I mean, you know, if I drive over there and I can't park anywhere, how am I going to use the spot?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What other questions? You guys want more information? Want me to get an answer on the parking thing and come back on Tuesday?
No, you need, I just was, it's something that might be
It's a-
raised at
It's a
town
good
meeting.
point, though. And then I thought, Hazel, you had a good point about the map showing it, these trails connecting to the other trails. That would be helpful.
Okay.
Does-
And-
Do
yeah,
the
I'm
other
gonna-
trails have parking access?
No, the other trails are, do not have parking access. They're on the Amazon side, and all the parking on that side is for the Amazon employees.
Yeah, and there's no parking on what I call Mulglory Drive. That's the driveway to the water treatment plant.
Right, you're not, I know you're not, I know people park there on weekends to
Right.
use the thing, but other than that, there's no parking there either. So, you know, I think you need to look also at, I mean, I think it's a great spot, but at the same time, I'm trying to see how it's gonna be used by the community and how it's gonna hook up with other trails that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's my one concern.
So I don't deny that, and I think the long-term expectation is that we'll have a driveway coming in to that gate that's kind of, I think it's a little too close to the light, but, and it comes into
Oh,
the,
the one on Otis Street?
yeah, and it comes into the building here, and that there will be parking here for people. The other option might be, you know, limiting the parking on Smith Parkway. Again, I think that was created for people to, you know, because the train station
Oh,
lot was
you had terrible
overflowing.
screams about that if you try to move that parking at all.
Well, there's no, the train station lot is not overflowing anymore.
No.
So
That's because a
maybe,
lot of people are using it.
Well,
Right about it.
so I mean, I think if you limited that to 3-hour parking,
The trains, the MBTA collects money from the fare box. So when you go into the
no,
parking lot.
I'm talking about the parking on Smith Parkway.
Yeah, I'm talking about the MBTA parking lot. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the parking on the street.
Right.
That's
but the-
regulated by the town,
they're-
and that's
they're
currently
full, though.
free. Yeah, they're full because they're free,
Right.
right? And meanwhile, the lot is empty.
Oh,
So I think.
so you'd
again,
have to have enforcement
If
on
it's a
those
choice
parking
of
spots.
Westborough citizens using this lot or Shrewsbury citizens parking for free,
I think it's all people parking for free. I go
Well-
out there every once in a while and count the parking, and almost every day
Well,
those
there's-
spaces are full.
I mean, you're talking about a problem we don't even have yet, but if parking does become an issue and there's not enough parking on the site,
One thing you might do.
you know, you
is-
could issue resident stickers and only residents of Westborough can park along Smith Parkway.
Well, rather than do all that, because that requires enforcement, what you might do is reach out to the neighbor, which used to be Selectron, and Bose before that, and just ask for allowing a certain area of their large parking lot, which is about 400 cars, and there's probably 50 cars in the lot.
Right.
I think you could probably get a permission to park 40 cars there.
Sure.
And that would only be a short walk, a couple hundred yards.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree, that's a great idea. So, I mean, I think there are solutions for the parking, but, I mean, we're just trying to do the bare minimum cost-wise to get the site open and usable for the public.
Right, well, all I'm saying is that part of usability is being able to get to the site, so, and I think that's a question, because this is a site which is really quite isolated from the rest of the walking trails which people normally use in this town. And so that you have to make an effort to get there. A lot of places, most of the walking trails we try to have been in areas where
Yeah.
it's accessible from residential communities.
Yeah, and Hazel, we fully intend that there be parking on the site. We're just
Yeah.
not proposing it now until we see what happens with the dispatch center.
Yeah, no, that's
Um,
fine, I just
yeah.
am raising
I don't
that
want
as a question.
to, I don't want to tell you that we're never going to have a parking lot there for the public. I mean, that, we just don't want to ask the town for money for that if the dispatch center ends up paying for it.
No, it'd be nice to, if you lived on Arch Street, take these trails up to the brewery that we approved on the sidewalks, and then come back, make a day of it. It's great. No, I think it would be awesome.
Well, and I think the long-term vision is to have, a trail that goes up to the target ball fields,
Mhm.
so that the people that park could actually walk down here and, use this, enjoy
I mean,
this
I
site.
think it's a great site, I'm not,
The
I'm
the,
just raising some questions, yeah.
the MassWorks grant is going to create the B-Waltz right down Otis Street to this site. This is going to be accessible from Arrive, from Park. I
If
think-
someone poses the parking question to you, what I would simply say is that the study that is going to be done of the site for the reuse will consider parking. And don't even get caught up in the discussion of where it might be, what a possibility might be on the street. I wouldn't even discuss that because they'll
Okay,
get lost.
that makes a lot of sense to me.
Mark, what about security?
Well, the exterior fence will still be there, but you'll be able to walk in. The idea is that if the fire dispatch center does go through, there will be not necessarily security, but there'll be a human presence on the site 24/7. And we think that'll be enough to inhibit unauthorized activities. If not, certainly we would have to, the police will have to keep an eye out for bonfires or whatever else might go
Yeah,
on.
no, I just think because where the trail is now, it's not really near Area B, but then the new proposed trails are right along the fence line, so that's the only thing that I see that could be an issue.
The new fence, you mean?
Yes, the new fence, yeah.
So this trail, this green trail is very close to Area B. This is a proposed trail that would go down along the water and also join up. And actually, this trail here already exists, you just can't get past this fence.
Okay.
And in fact, you can if you're athletic enough, you can.
It's very steep.
No, it actually, this trail goes down to the water and then meets the fence, and then you kind of have to scale around the fence, and then you can pick up this trail again. It's,
There's a very small level area. The slope is quite steep, and then you have a level area right along the shoreline.
yeah. So this area here, this line, it was basically some type of drainage ditch, and it's, you can walk along this drainage ditch down to where this trail takes a left turn. This area is not really passable. That's why this trail is further away from the pond.
Because that's all wetlands.
So that
It's
existing,
too steep, and, yeah.
Excuse me.
so that existing path brings you right to Area B where there's no fence essentially.
Right now, there's
Yeah.
no fence,
Okay.
yeah. We need this fence here.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, this is a concept, right, Mark? So, I mean, when you get out in the field and you do a complete thorough study, that trail might be moved
Yeah.
to accommodate slope or whatever, soils, whatever.
Yep.
That's a good thing, too, to not get caught up in. Say
Okay,
that, you know, that these are not permanent locations.
right, we haven't, Land Trust will get out there and determine the best location for the trails, and volunteers will create the trails, and we'll spend some money on signage probably, but
No, I think it's a good idea. It's a nice project.
it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a great project.
I love the trails down by me at the end of Andrews. I think those are great.
Those are great.
Yeah, we use them all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, parking though, it's nice. I know people drive there, bring their dogs, so,
Those were some of the first trails built in the whole town.
yeah, we love them.
Great loop.
Yeah.
What other questions? Do you guys wanna continue this till Tuesday, or do you?
Yeah.
I think you should.
Pat, do you have any questions on it? You're gonna see this tomorrow night, so.
Patrick Welch, 15 Chauncey Circle. I guess, Mark, the only question I had was on those two red gates, is there any requirement, and by the way, I'll say, so originally I was on the Hakamakama committee, and it's great to see the progress that's been made in these diagrams. I was just curious, though, on those two red gates, is there going to be any requirement for vehicle access? Just thinking about the maintenance of the two.
Yeah, see this gate and this gate, this will be where people will get in to, so they need to get in to mow that area
Yeah.
where the landfills are, so they'll go in through these two gates.
Okay.
And you can get a vehicle in the existing driveway and come in here to get to that gate, and come in here to get to this gate.
Will the town be maintaining the?
No, that's still a responsibility of Beazer.
Oh, it is, and they're doing it, or they will, are they
Yeah,
doing it now?
yes, they are.
I know the only other question I think I would hold off on, because Jim made a really good point about parking and letting the studies determine what's appropriate. So other than that, that was my only question.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Do you guys want to motion this, or, I mean, I don't,
Do we need to?
You don't need to, it's
I don't think
informal.
so, yeah.
well, I would like the planning board support, if you're willing to give it for the article.
Oh, no, it's discussion and vote to support Article 16. So we do need to continue.
So I thought you wanted to continue the discussion to the next meeting.
It's up to you, if you
Yeah,
want to motion it now, or continue
Yeah,
it.
but we do
to-
need, my question is to you, we do need to make a motion because it's discussion and vote. It's not the informal discussion.
Well, you can decide to not take any action, you don't have to vote.
Well, we'd have to vote to continue the discussion, right?
My
Well,
suggestion
no,
is
it's not a
we,
hearing.
yeah,
No,
It's
okay.
a
then-
continuing hearing.
Yeah, my-
It's not a hearing.
yeah. But I would suggest that we wait and vote on our next meeting, so if anything comes up in your meeting tomorrow
Okay,
that may make a difference to your presentation, or maybe when you bring in the
Okay.
suggestion we've made tonight, then,
so
So-
I heard three suggestions. more pictures. I might have to read the minutes to remember.
Clear labels.
Clearer labels.
Map of existing trail system.
Okay,
Estimate
and then something about the other side of the pond too, showing where the,
fence line.
oh, estimate the fence like.
Yeah, show a big area plan that goes all the way up to Amazon 64. I think that would probably be good.
Okay. Kristen, can you put this item on the agenda for our next meeting too?
I
And
would-
does the trail system connect coming from further down Smith Parkway?
I don't know the land trust trails that well, but I believe that this trail goes down Smith Parkway and connects to more trails, yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you could, any possible way,
I think that's why they put that bridge over the train tracks for pedestrian access on
Yeah.
Fisher.
I mean,
That
if
was-
there's any way you could show, so all the interconnection.
Sure,
I
I'll
think
reach out to
that-
Land Trust
yeah,
and
I
see
think
what
that's important to-
connections there are.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Just a question. Had you reached out to any of the other town committees that would probably be very interested in this? Open Space probably voted to support this, right? I'm just
Well,
guessing.
we haven't met since
Okay.
this was put on the warrant, and we probably won't meet before this is put on the warrant.
Well, maybe call, you're the vice chair or the chair, the co-chair. Maybe call your other co-chair and ask them to poll your group, because you could have a meeting on town meeting floor, You could have a meeting on town meeting floor.
For the Open Space
Yeah, for
Committee?
the Open Space Committee,
Okay,
like we do for the planning board. And the planning board's meeting, by the way, is posted today. Kristen did that. So we're all set to discuss anything we
Yeah.
want on town
So-
meeting floor.
so I'm presenting this to AFC tomorrow night. Shelby will present it to the select board. Trying to think if there's other, I'll know better tomorrow what other boards we might need to present to, but
Active transportation would be good.
yeah,
We had our meeting though Monday. Doesn't mean that they couldn't have a meeting on town meeting floor.
okay.
Yeah, I think as much support as you can get on this from other committees in town would be very important.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Concom, I think Concom is hearing this as well, so.
How about WCLT? They don't need to post a meeting. They can do, they're a private organization. If you-
Well, when I reach out to them about the connections, I'll ask them if they can give us a vote of support if they are able to make that happen before the meeting. That's a great idea. All right. You guys have given me a lot to do, but, no, I mean, I appreciate that, because this is honestly some great suggestions, and I want to be prepared for town meeting, and I'm not probably the one giving it at town meeting. I think it'll be Shelby, because she's the chair, and we'll make her do that. She's much better speaker than I am, so.
You speak with your heart.
Kristen, I'm going to ask you, I'm not going to ask you for all the minutes, but I'm going to ask you to give me that list of stuff that I need, so that I can, because I will forget it all. I didn't take notes. All right?
I would put some pictures from
Yeah, I've already.
down from the down
Yeah.
the view.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got, actually just talked, Westborough TV, Jeff Poole, who's here tonight, and I went out and took a lot of drone footage. Some of it
Oh,
is,
neat.
some of it's like aerial, you can see the pond, and some of it's the drone's lower down, so you get, I don't want to say, it's not really a ground level view, but it's elevated a little. It's pretty nice. So
Are you going to use that as the
I'm
presentation?
going to try and get some of that footage.
That would be great.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
That's impressive.
yeah.
That's a couple of yes votes right there.
Well, that's, I give Westborough TV credit for that. I don't actually take credit for anything, because I don't really, I just talk, all right? But yeah, Jeff's gonna help me with that and get some of that footage, because I think that'll satisfy what you were looking for on-site. And if not, I'll go by and take some pictures to include, just so that we have it. I have pictures from the other side that I took when I was there, and I think I've showed you some of those.
Yeah, I think pictures tell the story. I mean,
Okay.
that really is. to show the town how important this resource is and that, you know, we need to have town access to it and make it part of our trail system.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, guys, so we'll take this up again Tuesday, and Jeff Poole has already sent me the footage for me to work on, so that shows how efficient they are at Westborough TV. All right, what else is on the agenda? Do we have minutes?
No. Oh, do we? Oh, was that because of corrections? Or,
No, it was sent to us at like 4:30 the day of the last meeting.
Right, so we didn't vote on it.
Yeah.
That's right.
oh,
Do you want to?
could we put it, let's put that on the 21st.
Okay. All right, so I think that's everything on the agenda. Is there any other business?
You
Jim?
actually do have two other things. I don't know if you
Oh,
wanted to
right.
discuss any of the town meeting zoning articles. Tomorrow evening, I go to the selectmen at approximately 7:05 to present our 3 zoning articles. There's also a site plan review on the selectmen's agenda for 8 Bellows Road. That's the borough's Islamic temple, which this board will be hearing on the 21st, the opening of the public hearing. And one thing I wanted to bring to your attention, because there is an agenda item that we keep for every meeting, that's board members that attend other committee meetings. And the Active Transportation Safety Committee had their meeting on Monday. And there's a warrant article to place rapid flashing beacons at the Rotary on the West Main Street entrance to the Rotary. As you know, there was an accident there involving a high school student. And there's a citizen petition to place rapid flashing beacons there. The Active Transportation Safety Committee was first alerted to this about a month ago at our last meeting, at the February meeting, where a member of the family came in and talked to us about it. And so at our last meeting this past Monday, the board voted to support that article at town meeting. I know that there'll probably be discussion about it as to where the beacons would be placed, which direction the beacons will face, but I just want you to know that that committee is going to support that article.
Do you guys want to talk about who's going to make the motions at town meeting for our articles?
We can do it next week.
Yeah, we can do it next week, that's fine.
So I might have to leave. I have
That's fine.
to
Pete.
balance the family, but will be there as much as possible.
I understand, Pete. It's,
Cool.
don't.
You can't be there all day and night.
Yeah, I don't want to get divorced.
John, you bringing a sleeping bag?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I'm glad to do one, whatever.
Telephone.
I mean, we've got 3, so
Yep.
I'll be glad to do one. You can just assign me, I'm not. I don't-
Good, you can do the sign one, because it's a passionate issue for you.
Oh,
You love the signs.
oh, I love sign. Actually, yeah, no, that's appropriate, quite
Yeah.
frankly. I'll do the sign one.
Since you're on the commission,
Historical
since you're on the
Commission,
board
right.
that's going to review it, and you're on design review, which
Right.
will, yeah, so I think it's appropriate for you to
Okay.
do that one.
I'll do signs.
All right.
I don't mind doing one either.
Electronic signs.
Somebody wants to
Sure.
say.
Okay. I mean, the other two are pretty easy, because they're just going to turn them over to Jim.
Okay.
All right?
You guys can decide at your next meeting whose name I put on it.
Right, yeah. We can draw, you can draw straws.
Well, I think he won, so he definitely has
All right.
one.
She also won.
Is there any other business?
Mm-mm.
All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? That's 5-0 in favor of adjournment.